Got it. Well, hello and welcome, everyone. I want to thank everyone who has come tonight. I know some regulars are traveling. I've heard that, and there's new faces here, and I'm so grateful that you've come to join us tonight for our little celebration and learning more about each other. So to begin our talk, I always like to give gratitude to the people that kind of come up with the topics for our grassroots themes every week or throughout the month. And so again, I want to give much gratitude for today's topic, which comes from our School of Ministry and Practitioners in Central America and Argentina. I just think it's amazing that we are spreading so far and wide. So the title is When the Road Gets Rocky. We've always had times in history when things appeared rocky and tumultuous. That's not new. When we wondered just what the heck was going on, the world's gone to pot. That was a term that my mother said all the time when I was a teenager, because of course, when she was a teenager, her parents thought the world was gone to pot. So, but I have to say that right now, there is certainly a lot going on. It is one of those times where you might go, holy smoke, what the heck is going on right now in the world and within a lot of people. So I add, it is a very different time for us now in life than ever before. And along with Science of Mind and all the wonderful things that I learned with Ernest Holmes, I did a lot of reading and searching through other sources and resources, trying to look at what's going on the planet right now, and actually kind of wondering about, what's my place in that? And why am I reacting the way I do to some circumstances that are going on in the world? And what's my place even within my reaction of connecting with everything? So I have found that when I've asked that question, sometimes I'm just amazed at how wonderfully I am guided to information that has reminded me that as I look at the world and work with it and the situations and my feelings, I'm always guided back to handling things with love. What would love do? And with oneness, because that is what I so strongly believe. And I have developed a stronger practice of being in the world, but not of it, with all these craziness that's going on. So even as crazy as it may seem, there is not a single person on the world that didn't volunteer to be here right now. We are here by divine appointment. We are here by divine design and appointment for wherever you are in your place on the planet right now. There are no accidents. It is the strongest of the strong and the bravest of the brave. That's all of you. We have just forgotten who we are. So do you feel strong and brave? Well, yeah. It's like, yeah, sometimes. Well, I believe everybody has a light within them, and even a knowing, an appointment, an assignment that comes forth at exactly when you are supposed to do what you do and when it's meant for you at that time. The God source doesn't make mistakes. It doesn't create things for no reason. I personally don't believe in the phrase just stuff happens. And the God source does not make junk DNA, because God doesn't make junk. So, yep, may sound a little crazy. And with the crazy, our footing can kind of get unsteady on the ground. And when that happens, when the world appears out of sorts and the road we're traveling on gets rocky and bumpy, it can jolt us and bounce us out of our comfort zone. And you know what I'm talking about. And it's not just driving or walking to the store. It's really our path of life, what we're doing to gain more experience about life, what we're doing to progress on our path of healing and knowing who we are in the world. We're affected by what we see. We're affected by what we hear, what we experience, and then the feelings and emotions that come up as a result of what we're experiencing. A few bumps in the road of life are, of course, normal. We don't live in a pristine world. And hopefully we've had life lessons and experiences that have taught us how to navigate effectively. Because a rocky road can, like I say, stop us in our tracks. It can halt the progress of our growth if we don't have a sufficient spiritual toolbox to help us along the way. And depending on our ability and our life tools that we have to use, that rocky road sometimes may seem more hazardous than it needs to be. So how do we handle that? Well, okay, so we're moving along pretty steady and smooth on our little growth path, and we're doing our healing work and doing all of our work, in the world out there and within. We're enjoying our classes. Nothing has interrupted us. And then all of a sudden, bam, you're hit with something. You hit a rock in the road. And I think it's a normal response to say, well, why is this happening? I thought all the work I was doing, especially with Science of Mind, would make it so I didn't experience these things anymore. I certainly went through that in the beginning. Am I alone in that? Anybody else? Still, did I just hear that behind a mask somewhere? Well, here's an honest story. After I had taken foundations, and I know a lot of people kind of felt this way, I had a very naive arrogance because things worked so well in the foundations class that I just thought I had it handled. And so I'm sitting in a meeting one day with this woman who was a really well-respected woman in our church. And she was even in ministerial school, and she's kind of having some stumblings about a few things. And I turned to her and I said, well, aren't you visioning about that? And her spiritual response was to give me the finger. It put me in my place, because that I realized that we are all, no matter how far along we are on this path, we are humans. We are spiritual beings, have a human experience, right? And we have a lot to learn. And I'll tell you that as far as I went, once I got into ministerial school and said yes to that experience, it was like spirit picked me up by one foot and shook me crazy till everything came out of my pockets and my ears. We're always working and always hitting a few bumps in the roads, right? So we can't really change the world out there, because everything that we do, all the work we do, is really within. So all of a sudden, it's made appear a little unstable and rocky. And you have this sensation of uncertainty. A first reaction may be to fall back into some of our old ways of handling things, because for sure, we knew that that worked right before we started this new growth path. And we might think that all this new stuff we're learning, maybe isn't working like we thought it would. Well, that's your first sign to come back to center, to bring everything back, because this stuff, what we teach, it does work, and it works just the way you think it's going to work. Because if you don't think it's working that way, right? That's an interesting statement for a lot of people. Well, with the world as it appears today, we have conflict, politics, separation, weather extremes, mandates, health changes. All of this can make life feel unstable right now. So why can't the world go back to the way it was? Yeah. One of the wonderful things about Science of Mind, and there are many, are the tools that we're taught as we wade through times like this. We grasping spiritual truths and universal laws, practices like spiritual mind treatment, our affirmative prayer, which, knowing the spiritual truth about something, no matter what the condition is, all of this help us regain our footing again, and then we can continue our path onward and upward with a greater sense of healing and presence. And in the process, we've helped ourselves. And when we help ourselves, we are helping humanity at the same time. Because remember, what we do vibrates out. Our own divine self is with us all the time. Spirit is with us always, to help us find that footing, to help us keep our balance in healing the work that we do for ourselves and our role in society. So being here by appointment, we will always find our way back to the road that's made straight before us, if that is our choice. The work is not easy, and we are then sure-footed again, continuing onward and upward. So here are a few Science of Mind principles that relate to today's topic. We recognize and respect all paths to God, honoring all individuals in their own unique spiritual path. We envision all people, all beings, and all life as expressions of God. We see a world in which each and every person lives in alignment with his or her highest spiritual principle, emphasizing unity with God and connection with each other. A world which individually and collectively we are called to a higher state of consciousness and action. We envision humanity awakening to its spiritual magnificence and discovering the creative power of thought, a world where each and every person discovers his or her own personal power and ability to create an individual life that works within a world that works for everyone. Now, how about the law of life? The law of life is powerful. It really is what drives us. From Ernest Holmes, this thing called you. Your faith can penetrate the clouds of unbelief and reveal the truth that is always perfect. Your words do not create this truth, but only reveal it. Your thought, operating through the law of life, can satisfy your need, turn fear to faith, loss into gain, failure into success, and act as if you already have dominion over evil, fear, disharmony, confusion, and uncertainty. Yeah. Faith, in the context of today's message, is not only about faith in the God source, it's faith in you, faith in yourself, your strength, your bravery, your presence, your ability to come back to center and right the path, and the strength to ask for assistance when you want it. One of our greatest tools in our lives is this philosophy itself. So what is the purpose of Science of Mind? So I'm going to read Ernest Holmes' words directly, and this is from the Science of Mind, page 448. The whole purpose of the Science of Mind is to reconcile the apparent separation of the spiritual world, which must be perfect, with the material world, which appears imperfect. The spiritual world is the cause of the material. We are spiritual beings governed by mental law. Only that world can appear to us which we mentally perceive. Man's experience is the logical outcome of his inner vision. His horizon is limited to the confines of his own consciousness. Wherever this consciousness lacks a true perspective, its outward expression will lack proper harmony. This is why we are taught to be transformed by the renewing of our minds. Since no one lives by proxy, but each unto himself, every individual must make the test in his own soul. Pretty powerful comment there. So what are we testing? That when we heal our thought of separation from the God source or anything, forgiveness of our part in everything, clear old beliefs, renewing of the mind, our lives change. We are learning how we affect the outcome of conditions and circumstances by affirming the truth and, for sure, the healing of our perception and our experience. I want to repeat a sentence that was in that reading. Only that world can appear to us which we mentally perceive. Man's experience is the logical outcome of his inner vision. His horizon is limited to the confines of his own consciousness. Whoa, this might give people some pause. Wait, what? My consciousness is helping cause things out there in the world? That's a powerful statement. But we do teach that in a sense. And it is this concept sometimes that contributes to people not wanting to continue in this philosophy, because it's pretty strong to take responsibility, not only for what's going on within us, around us, but even out there. But we take responsibility here and there, because you can't decide when you're in oneness and when you're not. You're always in oneness, but we can decide how we want to deal with it. Because when we heal ourselves of separation and judgment, we begin to heal the space around us. And either that space around you changes to match your new vibration of healing and oneness, or you are moved to a space that resonates with you. That is a law of the universe. When we learn to unwind what we've been taught to be victims in the world around us and victims of our own thought that can bring us pain, it's those looping thoughts that come and just won't stop. When we learn to handle that, there's an unleashing that happens in the soul. We have the power to change our perspective, our perception, and the view of appearances and its effect on us. Understanding the power of our thoughts and consciousness allows for support to be revealed to us that we may have never had any knowing that was there. We never knew support like that existed until we reached that place. Being in fear is one of those things that holds us in victimhood. We are unconsciously bombarded all the time with information, with pictures that make us fearful of what's going on now and in the future. And we're not even aware that it's building within us. So there's no need to think from fear. There's no need to react from the fear. Fear is like a kind of mind control, actually. We have the power to move out of that. We do that by learning and remembering our wholeness and our oneness with the God source, because with God, all is in divine order. But as humans, we do have human emotions. That's okay. We just don't have to stay there. Fear lowers our energy, our vibration. It keeps us in a loop of uncertainty and discomfort. Practicing staying in our remembering and planting our feet in the truth that all is working in our highest and best good helps to raise your energy and frees us. We may hear those same things and see those same pictures, but they won't have the same effect on us because we'll be in a place of compassion without fear. And the road ahead may get rocky, but you maneuver it then with grace and guidance. So let's take a look at some of those rocks in the road. Some of those rocks may have been placed there by the help of others, and you may know those people or you may not know those people. And maybe in those cases, the rocks are there, and as you pass by them, you'll have compassion to help heal some of those things that place those rocks there. And who knows, maybe the rock was placed there because you were the one that would know how to help it heal. Things come together like that in synchronicity. Some of the rocks in the road were put there by us, by the choices that we made. And in that's the case, we can learn to work around the rock. We can make different choices. We can even learn how to maneuver the rocks and maneuver the terrain the way it is. And that's okay. We are always at choice about that. Now, some of the rocks on the road have shown up because they are things from our subconscious that have come up now to be healed. They've come to the surface to be loved, forgiven, released, or integrated, whatever that is. These rocks take the most work. But as we allow ourselves to look at the rocks, even crack it open if you can, to have a look, to do the work, the rocks will diminish. And then we learn to love each of those and to love ourselves. And that's a spiritual practice all on its own. Spiritual practice and what I call having a spiritual toolbox is vital in the world today. Meditation to calm the body and your nervous system and raise your energy. Affirmative prayer to connect us with love and the light and the truth of universal law, of cause and effect, claiming what we choose to experience, and know about that. Reading spiritual literature and daily prayer comforts us. Journaling, or morning pages, as some people call it, provides your subconscious the opportunity to talk to you and for you to express things that you may not be able to say out loud. And there's also visioning. Being in nature or at a body of natural water like the ocean or the Gulf does magical things to the body and the mind and the breath. It is the breath that binds us. Sometimes when we're fearful, we hold our breath and we breathe very slowly. So taking a full breath, reminding yourself that the air and the oxygen is the presence of the divine is calming and can bring a greater feeling that you're not alone. So consistent use of these practices opens us to a greater awareness of guidance and our intuition. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. Now, these spiritual practices take discipline. I certainly won't sugarcoat that. And keeping up the consistency takes discipline. We are retraining our thought patterns, and in some cases, even our core beliefs. We're learning our science of mind principles and the form of affirmative prayer by taking our classes. You can talk to me or Relita about that. And if you're in a place where you want assistance with prayer support, talk to us about that too. All of that is helpful. With consistent practice, you become proficient and the mind starts working really in that affirmative language. Has anybody noticed that yet? if you're doing the work, especially when you're in the classes, your thoughts really start talking to you that way in affirmative language. That's your toolbox. So when something springs up in the news or in your space, that rock in the road, you'll know what to do to bring yourselves back to center, and you'll have a choice on what direction that you want to go. In times of uncertainty, when the world looks confusing and the road gets rocky, the discipline, the consistency, and the habits developed with spiritual practice is what keeps us centered and sane. This is practicing the presence. So I'll bring this to a close by just reminding us to only speak affirmatively of the life you wish to live in the world you choose to create. You speak of compassion, harmony for all people, children and animals, clean water and nutritious food. Let your faith be stronger than your fear. If it pulls at you, which it's known to do, just remember your faith in your own wholeness, your strength, your connection to spirit, to God, and that you're never alone. Spirit will be there in some way to support you, but you have to do your own work by affirming the positive. We are spiritual beings and we have great spiritual power. When we grasp the power that we have and remember how strong we really are as spiritual beings, the power we have to manifest and demonstrate, we'll be able to navigate all kinds of challenges. This is how we develop a higher level of consciousness, and then it kind of snowballs and it grows and it deepens. Then when you travel down that rocky road, if it appears too rocky and bumpy, you'll notice how fascinating the landscape is. And you can affirm that all is in divine activity, divine order, and divine outcome. I mentioned at the beginning that some of these world events right now can be making us all a little crazy and things look uncertain and fearful. And wouldn't it be nice if things went back the way they were? Well, I don't think it's going to, because I believe it's going to get better. That is the world that I'm creating and building. But what if it gets worse before it gets better? This is where your spiritual practice and your discipline is most important. Keeping our energy frequency high is vital going through these times right now. And it will keep us healthy. Raising our energy increases our health and keeps you in touch with your intuition and your spiritual practice. And who knows, you may be the ones comforting others during some of the times ahead, or even now. So practice talking about what you want to see in the world. What is the beautiful, compassionate world you want to live in? See it, feel it, name it, describe it. Do everything you can to avoid letting fear consume you, and good luck with that, but you can do it. I used to have a t-shirt that said, "Fear, the thief of dreams." It's a true statement. It can also hold us in bondage. When this starts to happen, remember to breathe very deeply. Claim that spirit is guiding the process in that moment, and you know there is a good coming from this, and you are willing to see it. Claim divine order, divine activity, and divine outcome of the highest and best in spirit, regardless of conditions. And as you travel down that road, you are the only one who can clear the rocks and smooth the bumps. But spirit will always be with you to help in some way. Your affirmation can be, every step of the way is an extension of my faith, my strength, and truth. The further I go, the higher I rise. And so it is. Thank you. Now, this would be our time. We would turn off the recording and we would go into our discussion and questions, but I would love to take just a few minutes because this is everyone getting to see me in person and meet me. And I'm just so happy that you've come. So I'd like to take a few minutes to just tell you more about who I am and what I'm doing right now. So I love the consciousness of this community. I got to speak a few times before I was asked to come in. We are small but mighty. Don't ever doubt that. You are a mighty group. I love this group of people that have been holding this together. Del and Walida and Randy and Brad and the help of Reverend Jeff and Sue Ellen and everybody that has continued to contribute and come. And so, and Sue Ellen, as the previous minister here, she is my mentor. She's a fabulous minister and human being, and I just love her. So I'm enjoying learning about Tulsa, and I wish I was here in person, but it's not time for me to move from Texas. Our children and grandchildren are there, and so that's where we kind of belong physically, but I can come in person sometimes and be on Zoom. So I'm happy about that. Bob and I are originally from Maryland. We moved our family to Salt Lake City, Utah in the early 90s for business. I spent some time in Tucson, Arizona. It's hot there in the summer. And then back to Salt Lake City. And I've been in Justin now. We've been in Justin now for about 3 years, Justin, Texas. So I'm 4 hours south, but it's a nice highway drive if you like that thing. I'll tell you a little bit about Bob and I. We met in 1974, and I spoke about our relationship during one of my talks last fall, actually about exactly a year ago, I think. Our relationship and our communication, which is really nice. And we were married for 20 years, and then I realized I still had some growing and maturing to do. So I went out on my own so I could learn how to handle who I was and what I was growing into. Not uncommon, I guess. And then we remarried 20 years later, and we have a wonderful relationship and a wonderful life together. And we have 2 amazing sons, and we have with beautiful wives, and we have 5 grandchildren ranging from 4 to 20. And sometimes Bob and I tease about being on 20-year contracts. So I'm on good behavior now. No. I've been involved in metaphysics since I was a teenager, actually since my mid-teens. I discovered the local religious science church in Salt Lake City in 2002, and I knew my first day there, I was home. They were speaking my language. It was amazing to find it. I started classes right away, but I let Spirit guide me time-wise through all the classes, when to start practitioner training, and then ministerial school, and then Spirit brought me here, and there are no accidents. So I was glad about that. It is my hope and my intention to bring a fresh energy and frequency and an expanded consciousness to the center. My background before I came into the Church of Religious Science, which was the name before Centers for Spiritual Living, if anybody have a question about that, was that I played in metaphysics as a Reiki master, Native American spirituality, crystals, what goes on in the cosmos, and about anything else that was in style, because things are always kind of moving, right? As when you start going through practitioner training, it's advised that you set all of those things aside to really focus and dive in. So I did. And then once you enter ministerial school, your brain can't really do anything but that. I'm also a trained chaplain as well. I did that in between practitioner training and ministerial school. Well, so after moving to Texas, I didn't have a center that I was close to. So I found myself kind of moving through things for a little bit till I kind of found my spot. And what's interesting is that Spirit kind of dropped me right back into some of the metaphysics I'd been doing before, but actually even a little differently. I found myself learning more about metaphysics that encompassed galactic kind of things and what goes on in cosmic activity. It was a deeper understanding of grounding into earth and earthing itself, and learning about how we are multidimensional beings. And that allowed me to take a deeper grasp into the quantum field, which I have a little class I developed on learning and understanding the quantum field and how it really works with us. So I blend all of this with science of mind theory and practice. I think that's important. So every now and then I may say something that doesn't quite sound like science of mind, but actually it all comes from the same source. And once I was kind of delving into some other things, I found it so interesting that some of these woo-woo people that I would listen to and learn from were actually saying things that sounded like they were reading out of the Science of Mind text. So I was fascinated that this teaching really is universal. It is practical, it is real. And so that's just cool that that's the way things work. But I think it's interesting when we go back into the history of science of mind and the mind work, just think imagine how fascinating it must have been for people back at the turn of the last century, you can say that now, huh? That they realized that they could have a thought and think about somebody and not even be next to them, and it had an effect on them. That's just amazing to me. And here we are today. I like that. Right now, currently, I am enrolled in a Noetic leadership course with the Institute of Noetic Sciences. Some people may know it by its acronym, IONS. And I plan to take my leadership training in that direction for a time being, because I think it's important. Things are changing, business is changing, churches are changing. And how business as usual is not bad, but it needs a little bit more consciousness, I think, with what is happening in the world today. So the class I'm taking is Leadership and Problem Solving with Increased Intuition, Inspiration, Impulse, and Insight. So a little bit I've taken from its website because it's kind of interesting to explain this. So the course teaches how to lead from inner wisdom and our inherent interconnection, and to understand how a noetic approach can complement and strengthen other leadership models in support of expanded positive impact. Okay, what is that? We teach all things start from the unseen and the invisible, right? So, and we work with that with spiritual mind treatment and visioning. Well, coming from the direction of noetic science, we're also looking at the very same thing, that everything is connected, the interconnected nature of reality, to gain a deeper understanding of our inner worlds, plural, inner worlds, and the interconnection between all things. Noetic science is scientific exploration combined with personal discovery. If you aren't familiar with the history of ions, it was started by Edgar Mitchell, who was one of the Apollo 14 astronauts. He had an experience of oneness with everything, and he wanted to find a way to gain for other people to have that experience. So that's what I want to. So I'm doing what we teach spiritually, just another door into it for at the moment, keeping myself informed, my best for you, and growing. And I really enjoy it. I believe the path of the world is that we're unfolding along. This approach of problem solving is very good for us and for leadership. And so I love science of mind. I love religious science and what we stand for. I'll never leave it, but I like and knowing that other things interact with it and intersect. And so I want to continue to grow myself so I can help you grow. And as I work with the board and speak with all you guys and eventually the community, I want to know what you think. And I want us to work together and grow together. So I'll stop there. Thanks.